We're making sure that we're not obligated to the inmate, that we're not dependent on the inmate. But that's why we're put in this position. We have to be better than them. Because if we don't respect ourselves, we can't expect the public to. How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji, host of Tear Talk. I'm going to do something a little very unique, still within the realms of law enforcement, but I'm reading my Facebook and I come across a post. It's coming from Police Mag. Title is Widow of Fallen Officer Writes Letter to Nike Over Kaepernick Ad. The following is an open letter to Nike posted on Facebook by Sherry Graham Potter, who is the surviving spouse of Pima County, Arizona Sheriff's Deputy Tim Graham. In 2005, Deputy Graham was struck by a vehicle and killed while struggling with an emotionally disturbed person. This is the wife of a fallen hero. And this is exactly what she wrote to Nike. It's a letter to Nike about their ad using Colin Kaepernick. I want to have a conversation about this hat. Now, in the ad, you're going to see that there's a hat. It's over 13 years old. I don't remember when I bought it exactly. I don't remember where I bought it. But what I do remember is why I wore it. On August 10, 2005, I was a newlywed with 2 young sons. My husband Tim and I had toasted our 1-month anniversary the night before, and I was enjoying a rare evening to myself, catching up on reading and relishing in the quiet, until there was a knock on my door. I had no way of knowing that the small act of turning a knob was about to shatter my life into a million pieces. I sat numb and in sheer disbelief as I was told that my husband, while in a foot pursuit and subsequent struggle with the suspect that ended up in the road, had been struck and killed by an oncoming vehicle. He took his last breath lying in the middle of the street. What I lost in that moment is indescribable. I had to watch his mother be dealt the most agonizing blow a parent can face, and I couldn't comfort her because I was in my own hell. I had to find a way to gut my own children in the gentlest way possible and tell them that this man they had come to love, who they looked up to, who cared for them as his own, would never walk through our door again. I don't know if you ever attended a police funeral or watching grown men who've seen the absolute worst things a civilian can imagine break down and sob over the casket of their brother is an image that never leaves you. The bagpipes haunt my dreams to this day, but it was the faces of my children, the innocence that abandoned them at such a tender age, that brought me to my knees. I had no choice but to move on. We trudged zombie-like through our days for weeks and weeks on end. I never left the house except to drive the boys to school or buy food we barely touched. I realized that I had to do something. I had to move my body or I was going to crawl out of my own skin. So I put on the only cap I had and I went for a run. It was short, it hurt, and it was ugly. But I felt just for those few moments on that road like a normal person. So I kept doing it. I put that hat on and I ran every day. Sometimes I had to stop and sit down because I was sobbing so hard. Sometimes I was so angry I ran until I thought my heart would stop. Sometimes I would just scream over and over again. But it still felt better than doing nothing. That black cap became a symbol to me. It's a sweat-stained and its shape is gone. The buckle in the back barely closes. But that hat represents my family's rise from the ashes. It stands for the strength and the sacrifice we made loving a man who had a job that we all knew could end his life every time he walked out that door. And it did. And I accept that. I still wear this hat. I wore it on my run this morning, and then I heard about your new ad campaign. Colin Kaepernick has the absolute right to protest anything he damn well pleases. I don't dispute that for 1 second. My father, my husband, and many, many friends have all served this country and were willing to fight for his right to kneel. But that right goes both ways. I also have a right to express my disgust at your decision to portray him as some kind of hero. What exactly has Colin Kaepernick sacrificed? His multi-million-dollar paycheck? Nope, you already gave him one of those. His reputation? No. He's been fawned over by celebrities and media alike. Funny, Tim Tebow was never called courageous when he knelt. This man whose contempt for law enforcement fits him like a sock has promoted an agenda that has been proven false time and time again, in study after study. But facts don't seem to matter anymore. This man has thrown his support behind divisive anti-police groups and donated money directly to a fugitive from justice who escaped prison after killing a police officer. I question the judgment of anyone who will put someone this controversial and divisive at the head of an advertising campaign, but it isn't my company to run. I don't know if I'll ever have the heart to ever get rid of this cap, but I will tell you this. I'll never purchase another Nike product as long as I live. You got this one wrong, Nike. Terribly, terribly wrong. Sherry Graham Potter, surviving spouse of Deputy Tim Graham. You know, this is very powerful. It struck me. It just came on my wall, hit me by surprise. I shared it. But what I did was I reached out to Sherry. I sent her a message on Facebook, and she sent me this video. Guys, take a listen.
I just wanted to expand a little bit on the reasoning behind my post and sort of who I was honoring by posting it. That wasn't just about me and my experience. One of the things that I do now is I work a lot with the surviving family members and officer co-workers of police officers killed in the line of duty. And it is humbling to help them walk this journey. And I wish more people had the opportunity to watch that process, you know, and to understand the depth of a loss like that. A law enforcement loss is unique in many different ways, and I'm not even remotely trying to say it's more important or anything like that. It just has a lot of facets to it that make it very unique. It's typically a violent death. There's typically a trial afterwards, which thankfully I didn't have to experience because the suspect was killed along with Tim. But there's a lot of reopening of those wounds on a pretty regular basis. There's always memorials, and National Police Week, and all of those different events. And every time you attend one as a survivor, it sort of opens that wound again. And I think that it's so very important for the general public to understand the process that we go through and how events like this shape who we are. And one of the things that it does to all of us, in my estimation, is it makes us hypersensitive to people who are anti-police and that type of element. And I am not saying that police officers do their jobs perfectly. I am fully aware that there are problems within those ranks. However, there is a lot of empirical evidence, studies, and that type of thing that say otherwise. But unfortunately, and particularly now with social media and YouTube videos and the ability to put small amounts of information out there, these guys, their job's even harder than it was. And so when somebody on a huge national platform as a revered professional athlete or celebrity talks about things and pushes an agenda that isn't necessarily based in fact, it grabs a lot of attention. And unfortunately, most people aren't real motivated to look at the evidence themselves. And so there are a lot of people out there who are just merely misinformed about law enforcement and what these guys do. And so that really bothers me. And that, amongst other things that he chose to do, that Nike decided to make him and give him this even larger platform, just really struck me. And so I think it's really important that people see the other side of the coin and understand why. I just think that was a dreadful mistake. There are millions of other athletes they could have chosen. And I feel it was a really divisive choice and sort of a middle finger to a huge section of society. Not just law enforcement officers and first responders, but their supporters and their families. So that's why I chose to write that post. I have very much respect for him as a human being, but I really disagree with that decision. So in my post, I talked a lot about my experience directly after Tim was killed, the way it affected my children, his funeral. It was devastating and a horrible thing to go through.